When making a film of any genre, there are codes and conventions that the majority of mainstream films follow. In our opening for The Axeman, we follow some conventions but challenge and change a few as well. The overall purpose is to engage the audience within the film and get them into the fantasy of the film. Furthermore, a title sequence is meant to grab the audience's attention, get them engaged within the film, and allow them to get to know the characters and settings quickly. A title sequence should also set the atmosphere and tone for the film so the audiences become integrated and intrigued and have an expectation for the film's content. For example, most horror films open with a shock, say a killing, or introduce the audience to the backstory of the film. The tension is normally created first in a few minutes, which we are able to do so as we were making our opening. In horror openings, the purpose is to make the audience on edge and to create suspense, and then makes them feel involved in the film. In our opening, Axeman is left looking at Nate, so this will make the audience intrigued to find out what happens to him later upon our narrative. Lauren is now going to speak to you about key features in the openings of horror films.
One key feature of any film opening is the credits. The credits tend to appear in a certain order, which is production company name, logo, director's name or film name, actors' names and production team's names. However, they vary depending on how important each role is in the film and the atmosphere which the director intends to create with the opening. For example, originally wanted to add suspense to our opening, so the title didn't appear until the end of the opening. However, we then realised that this goes against the conventions of a horror film, and as we want to appeal to our target audience of mainstreamers, we then decided to follow typical codes and conventions by having the title at the beginning of our opening. Now Josh is going to talk about mise-en-scène.
Mise-en-scène is another important factor when attempting to set the tone and atmosphere for our opening sequence. Mise-en-scène is the arrangement of everything which is seen in the framing. Similarly to many horror films, our victim is followed by the killer. However, we go against the darkened lighting which is normally seen in most horror films. For example, this is seen in Scream, which is set most of the time at night. Now I shall pass on to Nathaniel, who will talk to you about camera angles.
Now I talk about camera angles. Camera angles are important within the horror film openings, particularly in slasher genres. Now, by using different camera angles, you can create an effect that the character in frame is weaker or more powerful depending on the shot that is used. An example of this unconventional media is shown in Ghosts. This shot makes the killer seem bigger, also gives the impression of power. We also follow this convention in our own opening when the Axeman is killing Charlotte. The camera shot given helps give the impression that our killer is much bigger than he really is. Similarly, we use the low angle shot at 1 minute 13 seconds to give the impression that he is a lot stronger and the victim is a lot weaker and powerless to the crazed Axeman. Now we'll talk. Jacob will give you an introduction on props.
The props we use also follow the conventions of horror slashers. Masks are commonly associated with the slasher genre in particular, as they hide the face of the killer. This is seen in films like Scream or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We use similar masks to both films, in that it is a simple mask that just hides the killer's main features. Another convention in the slasher genre is that the weapon used by the killer is normally a close-range weapon that would cause a brutal death. Weapons commonly used are knives, swords or axes. These kinds of weapons are used as they are more common than some other weapons, which can add to the fear the audience feels. In addition, these kinds of weapons can slow painful deaths. Just cut and then we'll cut again.
Okay.
In addition, these kinds of weapons can cause slow and painful deaths. Rather than the gun that would likely cause a quick death, we use a blood-stained axe in our opening, and it has the potential to brutally kill someone. The blood also on the blade could also show that the Axeman has killed before. In a large amount of horror films, we see that a woman is normally the last person to be targeted by the killer, and normally survives the experience by killing a murderer. This can be seen in films like Scream, with Sidney Prescott surviving the killer's plot. Though in horror films it is commonly seen that a girl is also the first target in a horror film, We follow this convention with the character Charlotte dying in our slasher films. The environments can be used to narrow down two main types: environments that the characters in films know, or settings the characters don't know. Both of these give different effects. If the characters in the film don't know the environment tends to be isolated or abandoned. This creates curiosity in the audience. On the other hand, films like Scream use settings like a school that would seem familiar to the characters. Using environments like this makes the audience more surprised when the main events of the film happen, as they would not expect it to occur at these areas. This is because of the false sense of security that this convention creates.
Within our film, we use colour to foreshadow the events that are going to happen. The character Charlotte wears black tracksuit bottoms. Black is commonly linked to death, which foreshadows that she's going to get killed. Charlotte also wears white trainers. White is symbolic of innocence, therefore emphasising that the character Charlotte has done nothing wrong, and also shows that she's unaware of the events that are going to occur. In addition to this, Charlotte wears a grey hoodie. Grey is associated with misery, a common theme in horror films. The Axeman is wearing dark colours such as black and red. The black creates the idea of evil, and with the white Charlotte is wearing, which is symbolic of good, this creates an idea of good versus evil. Axeman has red writing on his hoodie. Red is symbolic of danger, therefore this symbolises that the Axeman is a dangerous figure and poses a threat to society. We used music that becomes more dramatic as the piece played. This builds tension and creates suspense. The high pitches represent a scream, which is commonly associated with fear. This can lead to the audience feeling uneasy, which is the intention that we want to create. The sound effects when Charlotte gets hit are louder than the music to create sudden impact that would likely scare the audience due to it being so sudden. In conclusion, we mainly conformed to conventions used within horror. This is because one of our main psychographics is mainstreamers, meaning that we want to appeal to them. But in addition to this, we also are trying to appeal to explorers to widen our target audience. Therefore, we do have some close conventions which challenge those in typical horror film to make sure we appeal to that group as well.